The year is 1347, and in the basement of a Parisian monastery, a monk named Brother Clement is doing something that would make even the rats flee in disgust. He's standing over a wooden trough filled with what can only be described as human soup, a festering mixture of blood, pus, and liquefied flesh that's been sitting there for 3 days in the summer heat. The smell alone could strip paint from walls, but Clement doesn't even flinch. He's stirring it with his bare hands, fishing around in the rot like he's looking for coins in a fountain, because according to the medical wisdom of medieval Europe, this putrid stew contains the secret to eternal youth. Welcome to the world of monastic medicine, where the line between healing and horror was so blurred it might as well have been written in bodily fluids. But here's the part that should make your skin crawl. This wasn't some isolated madman's experiment. This was standard practice, documented, encouraged, and performed in monasteries across Europe for nearly 2 centuries. The Church, that great bastion of moral authority, was running what can only be described as medieval body farms. And the monks weren't just participants, they were enthusiasts. Brother Clement pulls something from the trough, and in the candlelight you can see it's a human finger, bloated and gray, the nail still attached but hanging by a thread. He examines it with the clinical detachment of a jeweler appraising a diamond, then places it carefully on a stone slab where dozens of other body parts are arranged in neat rows. Toes, ears, strips of skin, even what appears to be a tongue, all in various stages of decomposition. This is his collection, his life's work, and he's been building it for 7 years. The monastery's records, discovered in 1923 in a sealed chamber beneath Notre Dame, detail exactly what Clement was doing and why. He believed that human flesh, when properly decayed, released what he called the sacred humors, mystical fluids that could cure any disease, reverse aging, and even grant visions of heaven. But the process required precision. The bodies had to be fresh, preferably from the recently executed, though the records suggest that definition became increasingly flexible over time. The flesh had to be separated from the bone, while still warm, then left to rot in specific conditions mixed with herbs that included hemlock, nightshade, and something they called devil's bread, which modern analysis suggests was ergot-infected rye, the same fungus that causes hallucinations and gangrene. But here's where it gets truly depraved. The monks didn't just collect random corpses. They had a system, a hierarchy of desirability. Virgin flesh was considered the most potent, which meant young women and children were particularly sought after. The records describe in nauseating detail how Brother Clement would negotiate with executioners, offering absolution and coin for first access to bodies. He had preferences too. He believed that people who died in states of extreme emotion, terror, agony, ecstasy, produced more powerful humors. So he specifically requested the bodies of heretics burned at the stake, criminals broken on the wheel, and in one stomach-turning entry, a young mother who'd been buried alive for the crime of adultery. The monks would cut her free after 3 days, and Clement noted with scientific detachment that her flesh had begun to liquefy from the inside, creating what he called the perfect substrate for divine extraction. The monastery's basement became a charnel house disguised as a laboratory. Stone tables were carved with drainage channels that led to collection vessels. Iron hooks hung from the ceiling where bodies could be suspended and bled. There were vats, dozens of them, each containing different stages of decomposition. Some held fresh organs floating in wine, others contained bones being boiled to extract marrow. And one particularly large vessel was filled with what the records describe as the essence, a thick black liquid that was the final product of months of decay. This essence was the goal, the treasure at the end of this grotesque process. Monks would drink it, believing it granted them holy visions and protection from plague. They would rub it on their skin, convinced it prevented aging. Some would even inject it directly into their veins using hollow bird bones as primitive syringes, a practice that almost certainly killed more monks than it healed, though the records never quite acknowledge that inconvenient fact. Brother Clement kept meticulous notes, and they read like the diary of a man slowly descending into madness, or perhaps ascending into a different kind of consciousness entirely. He describes dreams where the dead speak to him, where he walks through gardens made of human hair, where angels with flayed skin guide him toward understanding. He writes about the taste of the essence, how it burns going down, how it makes his teeth ache and his vision blur, how afterward he can hear the thoughts of God himself, whispering secrets about the nature of flesh and spirit. By 1355, Brother Clement's work had attracted attention, but not the kind you might expect. He wasn't arrested or condemned. He was celebrated. Other monasteries sent their monks to study his techniques, and soon the practice spread like a disease across Christian Europe. In Germany, monks began experimenting with different preservation methods, discovering that freezing and thawing corpses in specific cycles produced different types of fluids. In Spain, an entire order of Franciscan friars dedicated themselves to what they called the holy putrefaction, establishing underground chambers where they could work year-round regardless of temperature. They developed tools, specialized knives with curved blades for separating flesh from bone, scoops for extracting organs, presses for squeezing fluids from tissue. These weren't crude implements hacked together in the dark. These were precision instruments, lovingly crafted, some of them decorated with religious iconography, crosses and saints etched into handles slick with human fat. The Vatican knew. Of course they knew. Papal records from 1362 mention the monasteries of sacred extraction and discuss appropriate sources for raw materials. There's even a letter from Pope Urban I suggesting that bodies of excommunicated Catholics were particularly suitable because their souls were already damned. So using their flesh for holy purposes was a kind of recycling a way to extract some good from the irredeemable. But the practice required an enormous supply of bodies, and where there's demand, there's always someone willing to supply. Grave robbing became epidemic across Europe, with organized gangs working directly with monasteries. They'd hit cemeteries on moonless nights, digging up the recently buried, sometimes taking only the choicest parts and leaving the rest scattered across the churchyard. In some cities, fresh graves required guards, and families would pay extra to have their loved ones buried in iron coffins or under stone slabs too heavy to move. The market became so robust that people started selling their bodies in advance, signing contracts that upon death, their corpse would be delivered to specific monasteries for specific prices. The going rate for a healthy adult male in 1370 was approximately 3 gold florins, about a year's wages for a common laborer. Women and children fetched more. Virgins, if you could prove their status, could go for 10 florins or higher. Brother Clement's journal from this period reveals something even more disturbing than the practice itself: his complete lack of moral conflict. He writes about his work with the enthusiasm of an artist discussing his craft. He describes the beauty of decomposition, how flesh transforms in color and texture, how the smell evolves from sharp and medicinal to sweet and nauseating, how each body tells a different story through the way it breaks down. He's particularly fascinated by the bodies of plague victims, noting how the disease seems to accelerate certain types of decay while preserving others. In one entry, he describes extracting fluid from a victim's buboes, those grotesque swellings characteristic of bubonic plague, and being disappointed that it didn't produce the visions he'd hoped for, only violent vomiting and temporary blindness. The practice finally began to collapse in the 1370s, not because anyone suddenly developed a moral compass, but because it stopped working. Monks who'd been drinking the essence for years began dying in horrific ways. Their bodies would rot from the inside while they were still alive, flesh turning black and sloughing off, organs liquefying, bones becoming so brittle they'd snap under their own weight. The smell was reportedly so intense that entire monasteries had to be abandoned. Brother Clement himself died in 1374, and his body was found in his laboratory, partially dissolved in one of his own vats. The records suggest he'd climbed in while still alive, perhaps seeking some final transformation, or maybe just driven completely insane by decades of inhaling decay and consuming corpses. The church moved quickly to suppress everything. Monasteries were sealed, records were burned, and anyone who spoke about the practices was threatened with excommunication or worse. By 1380, it was as if the entire thing had never happened. But evidence remained, hidden in sealed chambers, buried in forgotten archives, scratched into walls where the monks worked. In 1923, during renovations beneath Notre Dame, workers broke through a bricked-up doorway and found Brother Clement's laboratory perfectly preserved, frozen in time like a snapshot of hell. The vats were still there, dried residue coating their interiors. The tools were laid out on tables as if someone had just stepped away for a moment. And carved into the stone walls, in Latin so precise it must have taken months, was Brother Clement's final testimony. In corruption, we find truth. In decay, we find life. In death, we find God. The flesh is a lie. Only the essence remains. The chamber was sealed again within days, and official church records claim it was destroyed. But archaeologists who were present before the closure reported something that still haunts academic discussions. The vats weren't empty. There was still liquid in some of them, thick and black and moving slightly, as if something was alive in that darkness. They also reported a smell, faint but unmistakable sweet rot mixed with something chemical, something that shouldn't exist. One archaeologist, a man named Maurice Dubois, allegedly touched the residue on one of the tables and spent the next 3 days in a hospital bed, hallucinating about angels with no skin and gardens made of bones. He never spoke about the chamber again, and his notes from that day are missing from the official archives. So here's what should terrify you. This wasn't mythology or legend. This happened. Monks, holy men, representatives of God on earth, spent decades dissolving human beings and drinking the results, convinced they were achieving enlightenment. And for a while, everyone just let them do it. Makes you wonder what other horrors are sealed beneath the churches, hidden in the archives, waiting for someone to break through the wrong wall.